was really active. I played every sport that there was. And I had a really great family. And I had these two parents who were so supportive, and we did all the great things that you're supposed to do when you're a kid. We went to our cabin on the weekends, and my dad would drive hours just to watch me play ball or any other kind of sport. And we would stay out for hours playing catch or playing ball. And I thought I had my life all figured out. I had this box when I was a kid, and it had everything about what my life was going to be like when I got older. I had my husband in there, who was, of course, tall, dark, and handsome. I had my house, this big white house with green shutters and a white picket fence. I had what my kitchen was going to look like. I had the paint for my walls. And I really had no reason to think that my life wasn't going to turn out that way. And when I was 16 years old, everything that I thought was real and true about my parents' marriage, about the life that I was leading, turned out really not to be. So I was sitting home on the couch. It was the summer before my sophomore year in high school, and my dad came home from work a little bit early and asked me and my brother and my sister if we could leave for a couple hours so we could talk with my mom. And he's never done that before, so I knew something just wasn't right. And we left. I obeyed my dad's wish, and I was the first one to come back. I came back a couple hours later. My dad was sitting upstairs. My mom wasn't there. My dad looked pretty somber and embarrassed, and not like this superhero dad that I know. And that's the day that my dad told me he had been suffering from a gambling addiction for the past couple of years of his life. And 16 years old, I know that information obviously isn't great, but I don't understand the magnitude of it. So my dad, unfortunately, that was not his first introduction to addictions. He went through drug and alcohol recovery when I was really young, before I was 5 years old. So I've never seen my dad drink or do any kind of drugs. He's the most benevolent person that I know, extremely charismatic, can get along with everybody. But these were things that were part of his past that I thought were going to remain as part of his past. And what I learned is, through all of those years that I thought my parents had this great marriage, they did such a fantastic job of keeping things that weren't so great behind closed doors. So a lot of things that come with addiction include deception and lying and cheating and feeding the secrecy of this lifestyle that you're leading. And so for my mom, this was it for her. And this wasn't some small gambling problem, unfortunately. People were looking for my father. He gambled away pretty much everything that my parents had saved, college educations, and she just couldn't understand his obviously choices and decisions, and addiction can be something very personal. And so my mom kicked my dad out that day. And being 16 and thinking your parents had this perfect marriage, that was really hard for me to deal with, and I resented my mother for 3 years of my life because I didn't understand her choices. And I also spent those 3 years trying to fix my dad. I also didn't understand addiction when I was that young. And I thought, I'm just going to ask my dad to stop gambling, and he's going to not do it, and everything is going to go back to the way that it was. And again, that didn't work that way. So I spent those years really trying to support him, set goals for him, and it was, taking 2 steps forward and then take 8 steps back. So I began to feel like I'm failing as a daughter, and I don't know how to help my dad. And learned a lot about my dad in those years. He came from a very alcoholic home. Both his parents were alcoholics, and his father committed suicide when he was 12 years old. And I really had discovered that my dad never had the outlet or the emotional support system to talk about those things and to figure out why those things happen. So we're all products of our environment, and it's really no surprise to me today that my dad ended up with some of those same issues.